Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. My name is Todd Rosales, and I am your host. And as you can see, I do all my own work behind the scenes here, adjusting the volume and everything else. Folks, we've got a great show for you today. I'm really excited about this one. This is someone who's been in the Seed Lab circles for a while, and her and I have not exactly formally crossed paths yet, so I'm really excited to speak with her. We've got another great week of shows for you. For some reason, I keep committing to do 4 shows a week, but we're having fun. I hope you're enjoying watching them because they've been a blast to do, and we've gotten some great names on. Tomorrow, we've got Thomas Meredith from Blaze Staffing on tomorrow's Tuesday, so that makes Wednesday, Derek Duchent's Exactus Hemp. And then on Thursday, we have Halston Puchek from the Hoban Law Group. Halston has been a great friend of mine since joining the cannabis space, and we're really excited to get into her story. Today, we have someone who is going to be basically anchoring our panel on Thursday. We're really excited to hear from her, but I'm an impatient person, so instead of waiting till Thursday, I told Rob, let's just get her on the show on Monday, so this way I can take Thursday off and not have to attend the panel, although I'll put her anyway. So now that she's laughing, she might have revealed herself. I also want to point out, folks, we are having some technical difficulties today. We're not the experts here at Elevate Your Grind. I usually stream the guests to the TV so I can look at the camera and talk to you, talk to our guests. But today, my guest is going to be over to my right here today. So if you see me looking this way, I am not crazy. That's just where my guest is. So I'm diligently paying attention. So now that we've got all the disclaimers out of the way, please welcome who we're very excited to have. She's going to be anchoring the panel on Thursday. Join CLab.com if you want to register for it. Use the code CLAB100 if you want to get in for free. Please welcome Roz McCarthy, the founder and CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. Roz, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Todd, what's going on, brother? How are you?
Oh, I am doing great. Great day of work, great days of shows coming, or great week of shows coming up, and we've got your panel on Thursday that I'm looking forward to. So
we do. Well, hi everybody. So happy to be here. I want to make a disclaimer. You see me in the car. I am juggling being work mom and everything, but I'm not driving. I'm with my 16-year-old, so I'm happy to be with you and thank you for letting me hang out with you for a little bit.
We had Vlad Batista from Happy Monkey do the interview in his car. So, I mean, we're just going to have a thing where the top 5 interviews we do are going to be from cars.
Right. It's George Corbin and times 10. So, I got my 16-year-old who's learning how to drive, and she had to go by Walmart, and we just got stuck in traffic. But I didn't want to miss you. I think it's so important. I'm excited about Thursday show. If you guys haven't signed up for Thursday show, go. I mean, the panel and the conversation is going to be so rich and so deep, and it's going to be so good that I think we're going to have to do a part 2. So please make sure that you guys go register today.
No, absolutely. Thursday is going to be a great panel. And, the best thing about this job is when I have a guest on the show is my job is to look at look at your body of work, right? Look at the interviews that you've done, look at the articles that you've written, look at the companies you've been a part of. And, it was an absolute pleasure going back and watching some of the things that you've done for, I don't even know what it actually stands for the CFN network, there's a podcast, there were so many different things, and you've been everywhere. Originally, one of my first questions was going to be, Roz, you do so much, how do you have the time to do it? But now you're doing this from your car, so I think I've kind of figured it out. But I want to, beyond just Minorities for Medical Marijuana, you're also the CEO of Genesis Global. So, I mean, you've got more than one full-time job. You're a full-time mom to 2 kids are 16 and 22. And how do you find the time to do all the things that you do?
I know it's hard. And happy birthday to my son, Brian. Today's his birthday. He's 22 today. I'm super proud of him. You know what? Pre-COVID, I was literally going and flying all over the country and juggling not only the nonprofit business, but there's a for-profit side of Roz. I want to be able to have a for-profit entity that has the ability to make income and revenue, and we're in this industry trying to do the right thing, but also realizing there's some economic opportunity, and I don't think it's wrong to want to be able to figure out how to realize that. And so I juggle on trying to. I wear my nonprofit hat, I wear my mom hat, I wear my for-profit Roz hat. I'm a mentor, and so I actually this past July, last week, the whole month of July, I took the month off. I ended up, my board was like, listen, you need to sit, you need to rest, take care of yourself physically. You've been going a mile a minute. I mean, for those who don't know, M for MM has been around since 2016. And we literally, I formed the nonprofit May 10th, 2016. And we have been going gangbusters since then. And every year feels like a dog year. So it feels like I've been in the industry for like almost 30 years now, even though it's only been 4.
You know, I don't listen. If anybody has an issue with Roz having a for-profit side of her, go away. With the
Shame
amount of
on
work
you.
that she does for minorities for medical marijuana, I mean, I think it's okay if she makes a buck here and there. It's clearly, if you just Google her, you'll see all the great stuff that she's doing. So if you have an issue with it, like, we don't
Yeah.
need you as a fan, okay?
No.
She certainly deserves it. But I want to
Nor
back I kind of want to back up because it's a
Sure.
very inspiring story, right? You weren't always an entrepreneur. You worked in healthcare for a very long time.
Yep.
And this is the kind of story that inspires me, which is why I'm sitting in my house with my little webcam and my faulty equipment trying to start this show. But, myself, I've been a technology consultant for the first part of my professional life. And I've gotten to a point where I'm trying to reinvent myself. And, I think looking at your career, you're working in healthcare for so long, and then you had that aha moment. I think, listen, it's unfortunate the way that what brought your attention to cannabis, but you realized that so many other people can benefit from your story. And at that point, it led you to not only form the nonprofit, but also form the for-profit business. And now you are a full-fledged entrepreneur where your board is telling you to take off an entire month so you can recharge your batteries because they know how important you are.
Sure.
When you're sitting there working for somebody else, and I'm sure you were pretty successful in that role, what really is that clicking moment where you're like, you know what? I'm comfortable and I'm probably making decent money, but my time and my energy is better spent doing this entrepreneurial thing. How does that moment come up, and how does that click for you?
Yeah, marrying that moment where you are brave enough to step out and say, I want to pursue other passions, and knowing that financially you and your children may be at risk of being homeless, is a real it's a juncture in the road that really is not for the faint of heart. And I will tell you guys is that sometimes though, when you get that passion in your belly, that fire in your belly, and I think I had things that were fighting for me to jump out there. I was already an entrepreneur, but as an entrepreneur, as a consultant, I had to put away that business in order to breathe life into M for MM. But I just felt so passionate about it. And the fact that I lost my mom to breast cancer, my 22-year-old has sickle cell anemia, for me, it was almost like it was bigger than just me. Normally, when you are starting a business, you start a for-profit, and then you go, oh, hey, I want to give back. Let me start this nonprofit. Well, I did it backwards because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no clue. I just knew that my community had been going to jail for this plant. I knew that it was going to be a hard sell to tell the Black community, hey, this plant now can be used as a medicine, even though you've been targeted and that you've seen the destruction of the community because of the plant. I felt like, anyone like that was around my mom's age when she passed away, and that 50, 60-year-old, they wouldn't look at this as real medicine. I thought about my son being someone who was at the time 17. Had he had a need for the plant, just because he's a Black male could be, identified as maybe someone who was not wanting to work or lazy or whatever, even if he needs to utilize the plant for his healthcare issues. So for me, it was like a cataclysmic event of all these different things moving together, saying, do something, Roz, make something, Roz, make a change, figure it out. And I just got it in my belly and I did it. And so when you talk about elevate your grind is when you know there's something that you can do that's so much bigger than what you're doing right now. And the beautiful thing about it is that I took all the 25 years of healthcare experience and management and brought all of that along with the new education I got in cannabis and blended it together to create something so beautiful. And I'm so proud of M for MM.
So that's an incredible story. And I think you inspire people on so many levels, whether it's the work you're doing for minorities for medical marijuana, or really just taking a 20 plus year healthcare career and realizing that I have all this great value that I can bring to people, you know, and doing a nonprofit, and now even doing a for-profit and running both side by side. I can only imagine, you know, the looks that your kids give you when they see you, and how proud of you that they must be. Well, maybe not because they're 22 and 16, but when they get a little bit older, they obviously will be. But it's incredible. And I find one of the most intriguing parts of the story is that you were not a cannabis user or a cannabis
At
consumer
all.
beforehand. Yeah, you were
Nope.
raised to that if you want to smoke marijuana, you don't care about your life. I read that direct quote. And it took you realizing that other people, not yourself, not selfishly, Roz can benefit from this, but your mother, your son can benefit from it. Other people can benefit from it just from the medical side. And then I'm sure as you dug, I'm sure you were aware, but you dug deeper and realized not only can we do this for medicine, but there are a whole groups of people being oppressed by using this plant as a medium. We need to make sure that A, that they can get safe access to it, and B, that they're not being persecuted because they're choosing to use it. And folks, when I say persecution, I don't just mean arrests, even though that's a major part of it, but not getting opportunities, being looked down upon, just being stigmatized, right? So, you know, I don't want to rip open these wounds, but can you tell us kind of how you found cannabis? What brought this passion to you?
No, I mean, honestly, it was the state of Florida was in the midst of going through this whole kind of like marketing blitz via the news outlets about the fact that there was going to be an amendment 2 on the ballot regarding medical marijuana. And so when you watch the news, if you're watching, you know, it used to be Spectrum now, so it used to be Bright House. You're watching Bright House 13 News, and you see night after night commentary about the proliferation of medical marijuana programs throughout the country. The thought that the state of Florida was going to have this ballot, this amendment on the ballot for us to vote on. What it really made me do was go and just do some research. And let me tell you guys, I am a businesswoman. I am a capitalist. I believe in business. And so when I started doing my research first on the efficacy on the healthcare side, but then I started looking at the economics of the industry. And then I started looking at, again, the social justice issues that surround it. Like I said, it was almost like a perfect storm for me to say, you know what, if there's organizations like the Urban League, the NAACP, you know, African-American centric organizations who were not taking a stand on legalization. And I'm like, if we don't have an organization that creates a umbrella, a supportive effect, kind of opportunity for people who are coming from these communities, who's going to speak for us? Who's going to like make sure that we have a say or have some type of some type of skin in the game? And that's kind of like, I've never been an activist. I wasn't a consumer. I was the furthest person from the consumer. If you ask my girlfriends from college, everyone consumed except Roz. And so, but it was bigger than that. It was bigger than everything. And trust me, Todd, when I was doing this, my kids were looking at me. At the time, they were 17 and 12. And they were looking at me like, I lost everything. I lost a car. I lost, you know, I mean, literally, I was riding a bike to Publix to go grocery shopping because I didn't have any income coming in. And it was really, I believed in this and no one else did. And it was really, it was also God sent, in my opinion, because I just felt it. I felt my mom's spirit in me saying, Roz, if you're going to do this, get up off your ass and get it done and do it right. And I mean, I just did. But I know my children looked at me like, you know what, are you crazy? What are you doing? Our whole life, like what we know, I mean, it was already tough. I was already a consultant and an entrepreneur. So imagine you stop all of that business that's already kind of, you know, fragmented. And now you focus only on this nonprofit that's bringing in no revenue. And no one's really kind of buying into it. And then the people that are in the industry, they're like, oh yeah, that's great. But, you know, good luck with that. But, you know, thankfully on the other side, the backside, that things have worked out really well. And no, I'm not making tons of money, but imagine the passion. I mean, just the joy that I have when I see us being able to create opportunities for farmers who are getting into hemp farming, to be able to work with those retailers who want to have a CBD retail online, to do the things that I do. It really is heartwarming.
I can only imagine the joy that you get from waking up and going to work every day. And I can only imagine the relationship with your family is probably improved on that. I mean, that's something that I preach very much is when you do things that you love, I mean, it's just going to resonate throughout the rest of your life. And it seems that, seems that you're doing it and you're getting it done. And, fast forward to today, you look and when I Googled you, I mean, there isn't a conference that you're not a part of. There isn't a major company that you don't have some kind of history with. And it's incredible. And I'm so happy that it worked out for you. A, because now you get to be a guest on my show, but B, it just, when people follow their dreams and it works out for them, it's truly a heartwarming story. I'm sure it wasn't always that way. So all of a sudden, you found your nonprofit and, you've been involved in lobbying. You've been involved in helping shape policy. There's so many things that you've been involved in. You do these boot camps in every state that's not ass backwards, like Florida, and only allows 14 licenses. But we can get into that, a little bit later in the discussion. What were the early days like, besides the fact that you had to ride your bike to Publix? I mean, were you cold calling legislators? Were you just trying to get into every conference you can? I can only imagine how scrappy you had to be starting out.
Yeah, I was so scrapped. The biggest thing was, the main thing was being able to make a difference in the state of Florida. I knew that if I could, that our state is the third most populous state in the country. We have over 21 million people that reside in our state. And if we can make some positive impact in the state of Florida, what they say, where Florida goes, the country goes, that was always my philosophy. And that's why I figured, like, if I could make this really work, and shout out to the Black Caucus leaders with the state of Florida legislator, because they opened their doors to me. I would go see them. I would talk with them. I would share with them what I'm trying to get done. And literally, sorry guys with the sun, but
You're good.
Literally, they would like say, okay, Roz, what can we do? How can we help? And so the bill passed in November of 2016. 2017 in session, that's when we got to work to talk about the bill and how will we put it together, and how can we make sure that communities of color were able to participate. And that was the start of it, and it just blossomed from there. And it was still a lot of grunt work, because as you're building chapters throughout the country, you had other people that were saying, hey, I'm in Kentucky and I have some similar issues. I'm in Pennsylvania. I need your help here, Roz. And so we literally just went state by state by state, taking what we did in Florida and trying to duplicate it, and trying to have similar conversations, and trying to get people to open up the door and hear our story. And slowly but surely, people would, write an article about what we're doing. We were the reasons that the diversity language that's in the Florida bill right now, even though it's not the end all be all, that was because of M for MM. Florida A&M University gets $10 for every card that's distributed in the state of Florida. That was because of M for MM. We helped to influence that.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so that was like our first at bat, and then it just kind of took off from there.
That's absolutely incredible. First of all, I want to commend you for not panicking while you're doing this and having your 16-year-old drive you around.
I know. I'm sweating.
So don't worry about the sun or anything else. Just make sure that you guys are safe. But
we are.
Not only do you get involved in the legislature side, but I don't think people realize that that's only the beginning of the battle, is by getting the legislature in there and opening up access and making sure that there is licenses or opportunities set aside for people who may not otherwise be able to access them. But that's only the beginning, right? Just because they have these opportunities doesn't mean that they're able to execute on them. So you guys focus heavily on education all the way through capital introductions, correct?
Absolutely. That was the reason why we created the boot camps, because you had states like Illinois that created like these social equity opportunities and made it easier for social equity applicants or people that identify as social equity, made it easier for them to get in. However, this is the most highly complex, compliance-driven industry I've ever been. And for us to go out and sell people on this, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory type of idea without giving them and laying down the foundation of what it is and what you have to do and how you have to prepare and how to build a team and how to do your business plan, how to create SOPs, how to find funding, all this stuff that goes with owning a business in this industry. Shame on us if we're not being able to, if we tell the good stuff, we also need to tell the stuff that goes with it that's not so good, that you have to do, that's just a part of the industry. And so, so the start of getting policy in That's just the start of it. The main thing is afterwards, how do you take policy and implement and execute it so that you see the things that you want to do with the policy actually come into fruition, if that makes sense?
No, it absolutely makes sense. I mean, going off of what you said, we see former Wall Street executives obviously coming into this space and not making it. Some of the biggest companies in the industry are out of money and they're
Right,
not being successful because it is so hard, right? Not
right,
only, listen, people think that, okay, if you have a cannabis company, it's a license to print money. No, by all means, it is not. It is a license to pay taxes, and it's a license to pay a lot of taxes, and it's a license to open yourself up to a ton of regulatory control, right? So I think the education is probably the most important part, being able to say, okay, now that you've been given this opportunity, we want to make sure that you're going to navigate those waters correctly. And then even
sure.
still, one of the hardest things for people in this industry to do is to raise capital. Now you have investors coming in saying, hey, we're looking for these opportunities. I even saw one of the interviews, you said that you have investors pitching what they're looking for to the people in your programs.
We do. So the boot camp is normally when we did it in person, it was a 4-day event, 2 weekends back to back, and we just did a boot camp for Massachusetts for the delivery service. So Massachusetts delivery has been earmarked for social equity for the first 2 years, and that means that those licenses will go out to social equity applicants for the first 2 years. With that being said, you once you get your business plan going, you get your license, you go through all this stuff, you get your initial capital to help you kind of get to the point where you are ready to be operational. Building out capacity and being able to get funding, that's always a tricky point. And believe it or not, there's funders out there, there's investors out there that are very much interested in investing into these different businesses, but they sometimes don't know where to find them, and especially to find the ones that are that have really done a lot of the due diligence and really show promise in regards to creating revenue and being able to offer a service that's going to, make money. And at the end of the day, people just want to know what's the return on investment. And I challenge investors, listen, you'll go and risk millions of dollars on an acreage. Think about just taking a 1% of that and risking that on a social equity applicant who's out there who will work so hard and is going to be so just appreciative and not wanting to fail and of the support that's needed. So
no,
that's what I want folks to think about.
I've come across a lot of companies of that nature. I mean, I for a lot of people to know, I started my career in cannabis in some way in a venture capital position. And there's a company, a social equity company out in San Francisco called James Henry, that if I had enough money to buy a half decent podcast system that wouldn't fail on me from time to time, I would love to have backed them. Based out of San Francisco, 2 young gentlemen that were more eloquent and smarter than I could ever imagine being in my life. And I think there are a ton of opportunities out there that people need to take a look at for that. As far as the investors, I mean, how hard was it for you to grab their ears, because they're skeptical as everything as it is? I mean, was it through your partnerships, or was that just more work from your group that you're able to get these investors and bring them into your circle?
It was work from our group. It was talking. It was being on the phone. It was having conversations with people that said, you know what, I might be interested. It was individuals who were outside of the cannabis industry that we were able to coax to come in and maybe think about looking up, lining their investors to think about investing in the cannabis industry. And it's not perfected. But good thing about it is that there are groups that are out there right now that are coming together and bringing and creating these crowdfunding opportunities for social equity businesses, as well as small businesses, to help them from a funding perspective. Until you guys remember, until we legalize at a federal level, the dollars that are out there for small business are not available for these small up and coming businesses. And if you don't have family with the dollars to support you, even if you're not touching plant, I mean, Todd, there's so many great, creative, brilliant business minds who have some really cool ideas on non-touching plant ancillary businesses. And they just need a fraction of funds to really bring it to fruition. And so that's our goal, is to help that matchmaking process.
Roz, you could, raising capital is not an easy thing. I mean, I give you credit because you could make a ton of money doing capital introduction, and you're doing all of this out of the goodness of your heart.
I know, but and again, that is not my. So you have to in my opinion, there's two things I tell people all the time. I say I stay in my lane. I have tunnel vision about what I can do and what I can't do. I spent time in sales and marketing, working for Bristol Myers Squibb and a couple other different companies, and so I've always been told, Raj, you got to give for gab. But I'm not going to use it in a way that's not that's not unique to who I am and to what my I guess my services are offered or what I can offer. But I am great about connecting people. I feel like I'm a connector, and that's what I do with M for MM. I connect people to people. I create bridges when there's not bridges. In our industry, we lack sometimes business etiquette, and the reason why you haven't seen a huge turnover with M for MM, and the reason why we keep going strong is that I really work on utilizing skills that you learn from a business perspective in corporate America and transferring those over to cannabis, because cannabis industry sometimes can be like non-business etiquette, like just, hey, when I mess up something, I'm sorry. Hey, I forgot something, or thank you for helping me out with this. And that's why, if you say, hey, you got so many articles, and because you know what I do? If someone does an article on me, I call them back and I go, man, thank you for your time. Like, thank you so much for thinking enough of me to want to do an article about what we're doing. And it grows. If you put good energy out there, it really comes back to you.
I'm taking notes on this call as well. I mean, I think there's so much and I'm learning from you. One of the things that's most intriguing to me right now is you're doing so much good work out there. And as you said, it's federally illegal. So there are no federal programs that are out there that are designed to help these businesses. And listen, this is my personal opinion, and nobody has to agree with it. When it does become federally illegal, I don't think those federal programs are going to be the right thing that is going to help those businesses, because listen, we all see what's going on today. Nothing against our government, but they're reactionary. They're not very good at being proactive, right? I think
Right.
it's the people within our country and the people like yourself. And I hope that, when this does become federally legal, that the federal government or the state and local governments turn to someone like you when they create these programs, because you're going to have, let's see, 2016. So by the time this comes federally legal, potentially 10 years of experience creating and informing these I'm going to butcher this, socially equitable programs.
That's
And
perfect.
I hope they lean on you. Are there as other states come online from a legal standpoint, do you have people reaching out to you and asking advice? Ruh-roh, we might have lost her.
No, can you hear?
Oh, you're back. We got you.
Okay. So yes to your question. That is the role of M for MM. I will not always run M for MM. M for MM is a gift that's going to be for this industry for years and years to come. And our role is to go out there and create relationships in each state, so that when states are trying to create their own policies and procedures and looking at what's the golden standard, that they have a entity that's representing the community that has, let's be honest with you, like normally does not have representation. Normally we're the last to know or not in place to make change or affect change, and they're creating policy. We could have the relationship, and I don't care if you are D or an R, because I've had a chance to interact with to the conversation, as well as Democrat lawmakers. We just articulate what's important to us. You will see anything like shift of work. If you get policy in, the next year you go in, you make it better. The following year you go in, you make it even better. And it just happens, incrementally. It grows and gets better incrementally.
So I missed some of that, but I kind of caught what you're talking about on the tail end there. And I think it's great what you guys are doing. And if I recall correctly, as you said, this is going to live beyond you. The last article I saw, you guys have 27 chapters around the country, or have you grown beyond that?
No, we're about 27 right now. We're actually going through and retweaking some of our chapters and looking at people that are, we're so proud of some folks that have gone on. We had like Deshita Dawson was our chief strategy person, and hold on one second. And she was our chief strategy officer, and she's gone on, and now she's the Portland cannabis director for the city of Portland.
Wow.
So we're so excited that we're seeing internal growth of people that are basically have been working with M4MM, working with their brands, growing, and now they're growing into positions that allow them to empower and create policy and make change. And it's a beautiful thing, and that was the whole premise behind M4MM. It wasn't about Roz. It was about us creating this community that we could all just really go and make sure that we were taking care of one another and growing together.
Well, I'm certainly about first impressions in this industry because I think with all the stigmas circling the cannabis industry in its own, that we always have to put our best foot forward. And I think that minorities from medical marijuana, I got to tell you, that's going to be a tongue twister. So we might need, for us of us in the media, it's hard to say it more than once, but I think for medical marijuana is lucky that they had you as a founder. And because I think I've watched a lot of interviews and I watched a lot of the talks that you've done. And I think you do a great job representing them. And now to move on to 27 chapters and people that are going to go on and do all these great things, it is getting bigger than you. But I think the fact that you're there and you get to represent them is absolutely incredible. And I don't say that just because you're on the show. I mean, your reputation precedes you. People in C-Lab talk about you all the time. They're always talking about partnering you, getting Roz involved in this, getting Roz involved in that. And it's always in the positive light. So obviously you're doing something extremely well.
And I will tell you that I will tell you a lot of the work that we do is because of people. Like I see you have your True Leaf shirt on, so shout out to my friends over at True Leaf. You have your Cure Leaf cup over there on the side, and like shout out to those folks because the way as a nonprofit, having the name Minorities for Medical Marijuana, there is no like nonprofit funding or grants for us. And so if it were not for the folks, these MSOs who are out here doing a great job, but partnering with M4MM, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. So I would be remiss if I didn't take a minute to acknowledge the fact that Sotera Wellness and Weed Maps and a host of other folks out there that are corporate partners who come in and they're like, Roz, what do you need? How can we help you? And I really, really appreciate it.
Well, I notice a common thread between some of the most successful and biggest names in the industry, like yourself, Kim Rivers, Todd Beckwith, and myself. We all went to Florida State University, so I imagine that's got to be some kind of common thread that if you go to Florida State, that the cannabis industry is a place where you're going to thrive.
It's in your blood, man. You can't help it. So, shout out to the Florida State Seminoles, all the Seminoles out there. We will be coming back football-wise, but yeah, if you've ever been in Doak Campbell Stadium and been in that moment when that horse rides down the field and, and the whole game just gets charged up, it's a feeling like none other. And I'm super, super, proud of my school, but super proud of being in the state of Florida. We got some work to do, and that really dovetails into Thursday. The conversation on Thursday is going to talk about real work that we have to do in the state of Florida to work on improving our medical program from an access perspective, and but also look at the fact that I believe, and I want to, Todd, I would love to hear your thoughts too, that within the next 2 years, the state of Florida is poised to have an adult use bill that is approved by the constituents here in Florida.
So I listen, you want my opinion, and I think it needs to happen. I think, even if we don't get to adult use, I think they need to make it so more entrepreneurs can access the ability to participate in this industry. Minorities and others alike. I mean, right now, if you look at the state of Florida, you want to get involved in the cannabis industry, you're buying a license on the secondary market. You're buying it for $30 million. So even if you were able to tap every single one of Roz's investors, you may not be able to raise all that money. And I think they're keeping really good people and really smart people out of being able to participate in the industry here. I know a lot of that's being held up because of the Florida Grown case, and I don't think that the Department of Agriculture or anybody else, and I'm hoping I'm not pissing people off here by saying this, but I think that we need to look at expanding the program. I think we need to do it sooner than later, and whether that's adult use or medical, it just needs to get to a point where more entrepreneurs can participate. Roz, when I first learned about the medical marijuana program down here in Florida, and there was a provision that said that you had to operate as a farm or a nursery in the state for 30 years. As somebody who wanted to get into the industry, I'm like, I don't like that. But as a Floridian, I like that they were protecting our farmers, that this way the corporations weren't just going to come in, buy up all the farmland and take over, right? But that's not what happened. So,
No.
and I'm sure you're much more educated than I am than I am on it. I just tend to get on my soapbox a lot. But I think they're keeping everybody out of this industry. And I think the state of Florida can be in a position to have one of the top cannabis industries or markets or whatever you want to call it in the, if not only the country, but the world. I mean, I think we can easily rival California. So, I mean, if you want me to get on a soapbox, I gladly get on it.
No, but I do think that in order to rival, we have to look at the market like it is, the vertically integrated market in the state of Florida. And for all those who don't know what that means if you get a license in the state of Florida, you're vertically integrated. You're responsible under your license, no one else, to cultivate, process, manufacture, retail, and deliver the plant. So you're in charge of the whole ecosystem. When you do that, just by default, you create a monopoly. You create let me put it this way. Let me go back. You create monopolistic type of environment for entities. Now, I'm sure that there's several license holders in the state of Florida that if they had a choice to be able to do contracting or subcontracting or create opportunities where they do partnerships, they would. But the state of Florida has a ban on that. Like literally, you can't do any subcontracting. You can't do any JV agreements. You can do some licensing deals, but that really keeps you strong-held a little bit. So you don't really you're not able to give the owner of that proprietary information a lot of opportunity to have real ownership. So you're doing a licensing deal with the hopes that, in the next 3 to 5 years that things change and you can restructure a contract. But long story short, if we could be able to maybe our lawmakers understand that we still have communities, and I'm speaking on behalf of our communities and communities of color that are without access to the plant. There's no retail dispensary in their area. They're still lacking education. If we didn't see anything else with COVID-19, minority African Americans were more likely disproportionately to contract COVID and die from COVID. There's still a health equity issue in our communities. And so if nothing else, let's identify communities that still are at need of being able to have access to the plant. And let's earmark special licenses for those communities and allow social equity applicants to apply for those licenses. It's a unique way to be able to meet a need that's really critical right now.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, listen, there's nothing wrong with vertical integration, but I think there is something that's not right about forcing it, right? Companies like Trulieve and Curaleaf and a lot of the ones we have on our desk and the ones that operate in Florida would have evolved into vertically integrated companies out of a necessity to increase profit margin. And in that process, if we had a different system, they might have acquired some really great businesses along the way to become vertically integrated, which gives an opportunity for entrepreneurs who come into this space to be able to cash out and make money and make generational wealth. And I think there are a ton of people that could have benefited from it. But we're not doing that right now. And to your point, Roz, who better knows how to serve their community and the needs of that community than the people from that community themselves, right?
Exactly.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, I think there is a lot of work to do. And that's why I'm glad to be a part of C-Lab. And I'm glad that we have folks like you on here to bring these topics up, right? Listen, you anchored our diversity panel at Sacred Space last year, and now you're doing it again this year on Zoom, so a socially distant panel. What changed from last year to this year as far as topics, or are we still working on the same things in our state for the most part?
Well, I think we're still working on the same thing, but we're also living in a new normal with COVID-19. And I think we also have some anecdotal type of information that shows that we're still not where we need to be in regards to creating opportunity in this state. And let me take it back from opportunity. Being able to provide access in the state of Florida, I think there's an opportunity to do better. Kim Rivers said it best. She said it best, and she participated in a program called More Than a Moment. And in her, and if you haven't seen it, go to our website, m4mmunited.org, and check it out. And in her keynote, she mentioned we can do more. She knows the work that she's doing, but knows that we can do more. We can provide more access. We can be able to pay for more people's, help them pay for their medicine. And so all I want the state of Florida is to really start thinking about what else can we do to really improve this program. So if you look at the lineup of people that are going to be on the panel on Thursday, discussing it. We have someone that like I love, and she's so awesome and so smart. Toy Hutchinson, who actually used to be a senator in the state of Illinois, resigned her seat as a senator and took over as a czar for Illinois. She's going to bring her real world, real experience as to how she's really trying to change the dynamics of the program in her state and really share with us here in Florida, along with everybody else that's on the panel. But she's one that you guys are going to love her. She's so smart and so sharp and really has some great ideas.
No, I'm really excited. And funny story is I tend to I kick off a podcast right at the end of your panel, but I can almost guarantee that it's going to go long. So we're going to schedule that a little bit later. So this way I can make sure I can participate.
Give us a little room. Give us a little room.
Oh,
I mean, we have Marvin Washington, NFL great, who running his own job. Hearing from his perspective, he on the federal lawsuit that has been going through. We want to get an update about that, about what's going on with the lawsuit and how things are going on with that. It's going to be honest with you. There's this white guy who came to me 2 years ago. He's like, Roz, I want to talk about social equity and I want to write a book on it. And I'm looking at him like, what do you know? And then he really just was like, I don't, but I want to find out. I want to ask the questions. I want us to define it. I want us to talk about what does it mean and how can we make a difference. And he's come up with this guidebook where he has multiple outside authors. So I'm so excited to have Chris to talk through his process, passionate about, but didn't have a frame of reference and really built. You there?
Yeah, I'm there. Sorry. Your audio was there and then you cut out and then you stopped talking and then all of a sudden I see you looking at me. But no, I just like the gentleman with the book. I honestly feel like I'm in the same boat. Like I know issues and I've learned things here and there. I know that part of the original reason that cannabis was scheduled where it was is because it was a tool to use against minorities, right? And I think when we talk about social equity, and I can't wait to hear this on your panel, that there are so many things that need to change, right? I'm really excited for the panel. I can't tell you how much about that because I enjoy learning these things. And especially if I'm going to have a platform like this to talk about it, I think I need to be more educated. I don't even think I need to be more educated. I know I need to be more educated because now I have a platform where I can bring attention to these issues. And I think it's a responsibility of me to do so. So one of the things that I would like to offer you beyond just the panel on Thursday is to leverage this platform of Elevate Your Grind to bring attention to these issues. So if you have entrepreneurs, if you have folks that you think would be a great guest for us, please make the introduction. Let's get them on this show. Let's talk to them because at the end of the day, for me, this show's a meritocracy. If you're cool and you've got a great story, I don't care if you're a bud tender. I don't care if you're the biggest CEO in the industry. I want to have you on this show and I want to hear your story, right? So
no, I appreciate that. We were having a conversation with a couple of the different cannabis conferences and expos, and they're starting to kind of change the format, of course, because of COVID, on how they're delivering content to people. And so, long story short, where the playbook, can you make recommendations? And so so what we're doing is really going and looking and going to start a process on our website that really pushes people in our community. If you have a unique story, or if you're a subject matter expert on something that's really unique in the industry, or even not unique, we have accountants and attorneys, and I think it's important that the diversification of our voices. Black people can talk more we can talk more than just about, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have some super smart, creative people that can really share insight on so many topics. And so we're going to do our best to vet out these folks and get them in front of you and spread the word and spread, their good news and what they're doing.
Well, that's exactly what I want to talk about. I want to talk about cool things because I love learning. I love hearing people's stories.
I do too. And how hype is it that we're going to have on Thursday too? We're going to have Florida State Representative Chevron Jones on as a guest, as a panelist. I mean, how often do you get a legislator who comes on, and when they talk, it's on the record almost. Softballs, we're going to talk hardballs, like, Representative Jones, what can we do to move the needle? How can you specifically help? What can we, so it's going to be a really, really good conversation.
I'm excited, and candidly, this is one of the first panels I did not help put together or in any way, shape, or form. I'm most excited for it, and it does not have my fingerprints anywhere on it. So I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to sit back, pop some popcorn and watch you guys and honestly educate myself. Roz, on that note, we have elections coming up, and we don't need to talk about the national elections, but just in general, you do a very good job identifying politicians that are aligned with the interest of the industry and aligned with the interest of what you guys are doing. How can people get better about figuring out who represents them the right way? Right? Because listen, nothing against the Democrats or the Republicans, but both of you guys decided not to have marijuana as an issue for your platform this year, right? And marijuana, for the most part, is something that can solve a lot of the things that are going on in this country. So we look at the individual representatives, and I think the state level and the local level is just as important as the national level. How can we be better about picking the politicians that best represent our industry and what needs to happen?
Well, I think the first thing is set your expectations, and don't. Let me put it this way: table your expectations as to what you expect your politician to do, because they are also. Cannabis is a single specific issue that is in the portfolio of a candidate's issues that they're addressing. So if you feel like a candidate is not covering that issue to the breadth and depth that you want to see, then fortify them with information and talking points that would help them to strengthen the insight into the information. They don't know as much as we know. When I was going to Tallahassee and talking to the different senators and different House reps, a lot of the things that I knew, they didn't know it. And so I would give them talking points. I would give them factoid sheets that says, listen, this is what the issue is. And that's when they became more versed on saying, do you know that Black people are 4 to 5 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis? That they didn't know that stuff. We had to teach it to them. So I just want you guys to set your expectations, and you can go and the beautiful thing about the internet is you can go Google anyone. Go Google and see what their voting record has been on a bill. Go Google and see if they formed a committee that even talks about it. I've been doing my research, and I know that one of the candidates that's going to be looking for election in November for president has a cannabis commission and has started conversation. Maybe his voice about the cannabis legalization is not where I need it to be, but the fact that you take the time to start a commission or have a body of people that are talking about this, that are close to you, at least we start somewhere. And so I just want people to know that, you have to start somewhere, and the progress that you want to see is not going to happen overnight. It's incremental progress. But the fact that you have the internet, you can go and find out who represents your district and find out their voting record history. And that'll tell you a lot about where they stand on the issue.
I think that's awesome. And I'd like to point out, folks, she didn't say listen to your friends on Facebook. She didn't say read a meme.
No, I did not.
She didn't say read headlines. Go and do the research yourself, because I learned something today too.
Exactly. And let me tell you guys something. The social media thing and the back and forth, do you guys realize, like, on social media, like, you got to let it go. Like, and sometimes when you have people that what have you, allow them to say, you know what, you got it, you win, whatever, let it go. Because at the end of the day, when you make your decisions, it's not going to be based upon what someone says in social media. You do your own research. That you may look at things that you see and add that to your process as you're processing things. But we got to be smarter. The cannabis industry is such a passionate industry, but we also got to kind of go back to old school, just doing the book work and getting yourself acclimated as to what's going on, what the real issues are, not getting bamboozled by, people coming around selling or saying something. Verify, trust, but verify. That's all.
Well, I will disagree in one small second, because our panel on Thursday is going to be on Facebook. That might change your opinion, because it's going to be an awesome panel. Yeah, that might change your opinion a little bit. Yeah, if nothing, but still trust but verify. Like I trust Roz,
but verify. I have no qualms. Like, I'm sure people go, well, does her son or did her mom or does she or whatever? You don't take my word for it. Google is a great tool nowadays. And all I'm saying is just, even when you get the information that comes from C Lab, don't take anyone's word for it. Whenever I do something, there's something powerful when I make a decision based upon the fact that I've researched it and I feel really strong about an issue that I'm like, okay, this is how I want to pivot. And it's not because someone told me to or someone suggested. It's because I do the research myself and then make that decision. And if I ever make a decision that's wrong, at least I can go back and say, you know what, Roz, you did your research, you made this decision. It wasn't the right decision, but it was the best one at the time based upon what you knew then. And you go from there. So I don't know, just words of advice.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think more people need to follow that advice. And I don't want to go too much deeper with you because I want people to tune in and see more of you on Thursday. But I will say, Roz, I think we need to make this a quarterly thing. I enjoyed having you on the show, and we definitely need to have you on more.
And next time, let's not talk about me. Let's talk about, really, I think there's a breadth and depth of topics out there that really are important from an industry perspective. And, I would love to get on and be able to share insight about some things that are very close and very specific to my world. I have a great topic about allyship and the fact that we are in, after the George Floyd incident and tragedy, and the Black Lives Matter protests and things that are happening, and the good stuff, the people that were peacefully protesting and wanting to see change. What I saw that really excited me was individuals who may not come from our community, individuals who may not have never been targeted, but they were allies. We cannot, in this industry, from a equity and inclusion perspective, do it by ourselves. And I mean by Black and brown people. We need, and it's about to storm, but we need individuals like yourself, Todd, and folks that may not look like us as allies and working together to help move the needle and make change. And one of my biggest allies, who's no longer with us, he passed away last year, was Bill Monroe. And Bill Monroe was someone that I counted on. And he was a 6'3" white guy with a heart of gold and knowledge you wouldn't, just so knowledgeable. And it had not been for Bill Monroe and his support when I first started out, I wouldn't be here. So I really want to talk about allyship, what that means, and how you can really make social change by not knowing it all, but being there and using privilege and using your influence to help make change. So maybe we'll do that later, right?
Absolutely. I'm going to have to educate myself a little bit, but look at you challenging me to get outside my comfort zone and have these conversations. So,
and that's the point about allyship. Allyship is not saying you know it all. Allyship is saying, hey, I'm an ally and I support what you believe in, and I may not have all the answers, and I may have questions, but how do I ask questions? I believe a lot of times we have our white brothers and sisters who are our counterparts that sometimes have questions, but sometimes may restrain because don't want to come across in a way that might be perceived in a rude or non-educated. Receive your questions and answer them and get. And can you hear the storm? It's storming here, guys. So the rain is coming down, and I'm so excited about what's coming up. But I will come back on anytime, Todd. Anytime.
Absolutely. So let's get the promos out, and then we can let you go because I don't want you to get stuck in the rain, and you've got a daughter that you need to go hang out with. Although I think I already got you stuck in the rain. So website, okay. Social media, let's get all that out.
Yep, absolutely. So find us. We have a document from the More Than a Moment event we did. It's the Cannabis Calls to Action List. Things the cannabis industry can do right now to help dismantle systemic racism. Go to our website, m4mmunited.org. m4mmunited.org. Instagram, M4MM United. Facebook, M4MM United. My handle is Canna Talk with Roz. And then of course Instagram is, Twitter is MIN4MED MED I think. But just put M4MM. Yeah, it'll pop up.
We'll find it, and when we do the recording of this episode, we'll put everything in the comments.
Absolutely.
Roz, Thank you so much. And anybody, if you want to see more of Roz, Thursday, 4:20 p.m., check it out, joinclab.com. If you want to listen, I highly recommend that you get into the Zoom meeting for this panel because you're going to be able to interact with the panelists. You're going to be able to ask questions, and you're going to see it firsthand. You want to watch it on our Facebook Live, great, but you're not going to be able to really participate. So if you're interested in this topic and you want to participate, go to joinclab.com. You can either put that you're my guest, Todd Rosales, or use the code CLAB100 and we'll get you in for free. You're going to get more Roz and you're going to get so much more. Of course, we're going to have her back. But Roz, thank you again so much for joining us today.
This has been awesome, man. I love it. Thank you for having me. Thank you guys for just supporting him and supporting Roz McCarthy. I really appreciate it. And together we can do so much. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us at home. This has been another episode of Elevate Your Grind, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on Facebook Live, facebook.com/Counter Business Group, and we're out.